Whenever crypto rallies, it doesn't take long for those pesky questions to come in and pump the brakes. How sustainable is this rally? How long will it last? And how do I know if this is a local top or the cycle top?
And he answered that was impossible to know for sure.
At the end of the day, crypto is a game of chance, and all you can do is make your best bet. But if you do your research, you can improve your odds of winning. And that's why today we're going to tell you everything you need to know about how to spot the top for your favorite crypto, and what you can do to improve your odds of walking away with life-changing gains. My name is Nick. Stay tuned. I'll start by saying that nothing in this video is financial advice. It's educational content intended to inform you about how the crypto market works, specifically cycle tops and local tops. And if you want to get more content like this, then smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ping that notification bell. Now, the first step to spotting the top on the crypto you hold is to figure out where Bitcoin is likely to top. And that's because Bitcoin leads the crypto market. So, if Bitcoin is topping, chances are that your altcoin will be topping too. Of course, some altcoins will top slightly sooner and others will top slightly later, but most altcoins usually top within a 2-week time frame of BTC, either 2 weeks sooner or 2 weeks later. And this, of course, begs the question of when exactly is Bitcoin going to top? And the answer is likely sometime in Q4 2025. Specifically around October. And that's because the average time between BTC's cycle lows and cycle tops is roughly around 1,050 days. And the average time between Bitcoin's halving and the Bitcoin cycle top is around 510 days. So, assuming history repeats, Bitcoin should top sometime around October 2025. That said, it's important to remember that history never repeats perfectly, but it does rhyme. And that's why it's better to think of Bitcoin's cycle top as falling within a range rather than a specific month or day. And we reckon a range of September to November makes the most sense. And this begs a bigger question though, and that's how you will be able to tell when Bitcoin tops within this range, especially when you widen it out. And the answer is to look for a big bullish catalyst that makes you feel like you never want to sell your BTC and it's only going to continue going up and to the right forever. In 2017, Bitcoin topped shortly after the CME listed Bitcoin futures products. And in 2021, Bitcoin topped shortly after the SEC approved Bitcoin futures ETFs. But this begs the biggest question of all, and that's what the cycle top catalyst for BTC could be in 2025, given that the US spot ETFs launched in 2024. As far as we can tell, the most likely answer is a government or central bank announcing that it has acquired Bitcoin. Obviously, this would be insanely bullish, and it would make everyone think that Bitcoin is going to go up only forever and never crash again. And this makes it the perfect candidate for a cycle top catalyst. If you've been keeping up with the crypto headlines, you'll know that there are two elephants in the room when it comes to a Bitcoin reserve. And the first is the US government, which has yet to formally announce the formation of a strategic Bitcoin reserve. The caveat is that everyone already knows about this catalyst, and many would argue that it's actually already priced in. And given this fact, it could mark a local top instead. The cycle top is where the second elephant comes in, and that's the Czech National Bank. Now, to refresh your memory, the Czech National Bank was considering buying Bitcoin earlier this year and approved discussions to do so. There have been no updates since that time, but there have been interesting developments. The Czech government recently seized hundreds of Bitcoin that had been allegedly used to bribe a politician. And it's possible that the Czech National Bank will purchase this seized BTC from the Czech government, as it would be the most logical way for the central bank to acquire it. Not only that, but the Czech election is scheduled for October 2025, and it's likely the government wants to get the Bitcoin scandal resolved by then. For context, the Czech Republic is a very crypto-friendly country and has a long history with Bitcoin. And if you want to maximize your returns when a big bullish catalyst like this comes along, then check out the Coin Bureau Deals page. That's where you will find sign-up bonuses of up to $100,000, trading fee discounts of up to 50%, and cashbacks on those deposits of up to 75% on the best crypto exchanges around. Now, these deals, they won't be around for long, so take advantage of them ASAP using the link down below or by scanning this QR code right over here. Do it. Back to the video. So, to quickly recap, Bitcoin is likely to top sometime around October 2025, plus or minus 1 month, and the trigger for the cycle top could be a bullish catalyst like a government or central bank buying Bitcoin. Now, with that September to November range in mind, the second step towards figuring out when the crypto you hold could peak is to move further down the list of cryptos to identify cycle tops. Similarly to BTC, the catalyst for an ETH cycle top is likely to be a partnership of some kind. And that's simply because ETH already has spot ETFs of its own and will soon be getting staked ETFs as well. As with the US Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, known catalysts for Ethereum related to things like ETFs are more likely to be local top catalysts than cycle top catalysts. And we've actually already seen lots of announcements from fintech firms like Robinhood experimenting with Ethereum layer 2s. As far as we can tell, the only catalyst that Ethereum seems to be missing is an announcement that a megabank will launch its own stablecoin on Ethereum, either on the layer 1 or as its own custom layer 2. Similarly to the Czech National Bank buying Bitcoin, there's lots of evidence that suggests this could happen soon, and the most evident being JP Morgan recently testing a stablecoin on Coinbase's Base chain. Now, to bring you up to speed, JP Morgan launched the JPMD stablecoin on Base back in July. The launch was for testing purposes, and it stands to reason that the purpose of the test was to either launch the stablecoin on their own layer 2 or launch it on Ethereum's layer 1. I mean, let's be real here, guys. So JP Morgan won't allow its stablecoin to circulate in size on a chain controlled by someone like Coinbase. Given this fact, it's possible that JP Morgan announces a full launch for its stablecoin on Ethereum or a layer 2 that it controls. And it's also possible that this could be a joint announcement featuring other large banks like Bank of America, given that they were reportedly working on a shared stablecoin a few months ago. Launching a shared layer 2 on Ethereum for this shared stablecoin would make a lot of sense. Notably, this is a catalyst that could occur in the next few months thanks to recent developments like the Genius Act passing. In other words, it's likely that JP Morgan or another big bank will launch a stablecoin on Ethereum between September and November, consistent with the Bitcoin cycle top timeline. And remember that Bitcoin leads and altcoins follow. The top catalyst must fit in Bitcoin's cycle top range. And this ties into the cycle top catalysts for other large altcoins like XRP and Solana, which you should already know if you've been paying attention. If you don't, let me remind you. ETFs. Spot ETFs for XRP, Sol, and about a half a dozen other altcoins are expected to be approved sometime in October. And this puts these catalysts within the range of Bitcoin's cycle top, and makes them likely to be the cycle top catalysts for XRP, Sol, etc., etc. Before you type in the comments about how spot ETFs would result in more inflows, I'll reiterate that a cycle top catalyst is a catalyst that makes you feel like the price for crypto in question will keep going up forever. And that's exactly what spot ETF approvals will do for altcoins like XRP, Sol, and others. And also do recall that spot Ethereum ETFs flopped when they launch. ETF launches don't guarantee inflows. Now, to quickly recap, Bitcoin is likely to top sometime around October 2025, with a cycle top range between September and November, triggered by a bullish catalyst like a central bank acquiring it. There are multiple catalysts coming up for major altcoins like ETH, XRP, and Sol that fall within this cycle top range, namely partnerships and spot ETF approvals. And this ties into the third step to take, and that's to figure out cycle tops for smaller altcoins. In theory, this is difficult to do because it requires figuring out every single catalyst for the altcoins you hold that fall within this September to November timeframe. In practice, This is a lot easier to do if it's a blue chip altcoin on a popular layer 1 like Ethereum or Solana, or a popular layer 2 like Base. For reference, most altcoins on Ethereum pump when ETH pumps, most altcoins on Solana pump when Sol pumps, and so on and so on. And this is just because most altcoins on Ethereum trade against ETH, and most altcoins on Solana trade against Sol. And when the price of ETH or Sol rises, the price of the altcoins on Ethereum and Solana will rise, just because the value of the denominator has increased. More importantly, when the price of large altcoins like ETH or Sol rises, the total amount of liquidity in Ethereum and Solana's ecosystems rises too. And that's just because large altcoins like ETH and Sol are used as collateral in DeFi to borrow stablecoins. So when ETH and Sol rally, Ethereum and Solana whales will borrow more stablecoins against ETH and Sol, and then inject this liquidity back into the crypto market. As with all liquidity flows, the assets that benefit the most from this crypto native liquidity boost are the assets that are closest to the source of liquidity, altcoins on Ethereum and Solana. And this is just a long-winded way of saying that if you hold a blue chip altcoin on Ethereum or Solana, there's a high chance that it will top at the same time as ETH and Sol. Newsflash, we covered their likely cycle top catalysts a moment ago. Anyways, if you're wondering what I mean by blue chip altcoins on Ethereum and Solana, the best examples are DeFi cryptos like Aave and Jupiter. And that's because they benefit directly from an increase in ETH and Sol's price and the resulting on-chain speculation. The borrowing dynamics I just mentioned use protocols like Camino, and the trading dynamics I just mentioned use DEXs like Uniswap. There's just one caveat though, and that's that DeFi is hard for most crypto investors to understand, particularly newer crypto investors. And if you've been keeping up with our videos, you'll know that we've been repeating that altcoins that are likely to see the biggest gains are those that fall into niches that are likely to get big and have strong narratives in these niches. And if you watched our video about how to find 100x cryptos, you'll know that examples of niches that could become big include GameFi, RWAs, Deepin, and others. Again, that doesn't mean that if you hold a GameFi crypto, it will automatically rally. It just means that you must go looking for narratives within this niche that are easy for investors to understand, like a decentralized Minecraft for GameFi. And you must also make sure that the altcoin in question is easy to buy, because otherwise it doesn't matter how strong the narrative is. No inflows means no pump. And in case you missed it, the altcoins that are the easiest to buy are listed on large centralized exchanges like Coinbase, or exist on fast, low-cost blockchains with user-friendly front ends like Solana and Base, which is precisely why they're popular. On that note, some of you might have heard that Coinbase recently added support for Base in the Coinbase app, not the Coinbase wallet, the Coinbase Exchange app. Logically, this makes altcoins on Base exponentially more accessible to investors. And Coinbase will soon be adding support for Solana as well. And you can say that this is the equivalent of every altcoin on Base and Solana being listed on Coinbase. The best part is that other exchanges are likely to follow suit. At first glance, you might think that this is a bad thing because it means that there will be too many altcoins to choose from. But upon closer inspection, you realize that it's actually a good thing. For starters, exchanges are only likely to integrate fast, low-cost chains like Base, Solana, Sui, Hyperliquid, etc., etc. Also, think about what it looks like for an end user. When you use an exchange app like Binance, for example, do you see the 500 plus altcoins it has listed when you open the app? No, you usually just see the biggest altcoins, plus the ones that have been pumping the most. Integrating chains just means it'll be easier for smaller altcoins to make it to the front page of centralized exchanges. And that's a good thing, and it's going to allow a lot of quality crypto projects to finally get noticed. So, to quickly recap once more, Bitcoin and most major altcoins like ETH and Sol are likely to top sometime between September and November. Since most altcoins with economic value exist on chains like Ethereum and Solana, most of them will top around the same time that ETH and Sol top. And this brings us to the fourth and final step, and that's how to know when Bitcoin, ETH, Sol, or any other altcoin has actually hit its peak price. After all, it's not like these cycle top catalysts will mark the exact top in price. On the contrary, they're likely to trigger the final rally, which could last for hours, days, or even weeks after the catalyst occurred. And this is where basic technical analysis comes in handy. And if you don't have the basics under your belt, fret not, we have a complete beginner's guide to crypto trading right over here. But for those unfamiliar, the reason why technical analysis works is because it fundamentally measures changes in human emotion, primarily fear and greed. Emotions of fear and greed follow predictable cycles, which is where all the technical analysis patterns come from. As a fun fact, the first person to discover this was a Japanese rice merchant named Honma Munehisa way back in the 1700s. Anyhow, when it comes to cycle top prices, people tend to look for round numbers like $10, 10 cents, 1 cent, or even 2 cents, 20 cents, $20, and so on and so on. Crypto whales know this, and they use it to their advantage to manipulate prices above or below the levels that most investors are waiting for. Take Bitcoin, for instance. Donald Trump reportedly said last year that he wants Bitcoin to hit a price of 150K. And you can bet your altcoin bags that this forgotten headline is going to become front page news again as Bitcoin approaches that figure. In our view, this means that there's two possibilities. One, crypto whales will take profits at around 140,000 because they know most investors are waiting for 150K. Or they'll push prices above 150K to around 160K, causing most investors who sold at 150K to ape back in expecting 200K. Make no mistake, this will happen to your altcoin bags too. Everyone expects an ETH top price of 10K, and this makes a price of somewhere closer to 9K or somewhere closer to 11K the most likely outcome. Similarly, everyone expects Sol to top around $1,000, and that makes a price of somewhere around $900 to $1,100 the most likely outcome. And we lean to the former, FYI. By now, you're probably wondering about the smaller altcoins. Again, it's the same idea. Suppose you have a blue chip altcoin on Ethereum like Aave. And suppose that ETH is close to the 8K level, and that Aave has rallied up to around $800. Chances are that most people will have 1K as their price target. And this means that you need to make a tough decision. Do I sell at around $900? Or do I hope Aave surprises to the upside up to about $1,100? Thankfully, there's a free technical analysis indicator you can check to see how much room Aave has to run in our hypothetical scenario, the Relative Strength Index, or RSI. The RSI should be freely available regardless of the exchange or platform you're using, just so long as it has a TradingView terminal. When you see prices heating up, throw on the RSI and zoom out to a longer time frame like the weekly or the monthly. Take ETH, for instance. If you look at ETH's price without the RSI, you might think there's no way this rally is sustainable. Surely it's going to end very soon. But if you throw on the RSI, you'll quickly realize, hey, wait a minute, the RSI is at the same level it was when ETH was half the price. So this rally can continue. As a rule of thumb, an RSI in the high 80s or low 90s on the monthly time frame is indicative of a cycle top. So, with these 4 simple steps, you should have all the info you need to figure out where BTC and most altcoins are likely to top. There's just one last thing to keep in mind though, and that's that the chances of selling the exact top are very low. The good news is that if you were holding before prices started going parabolic, you should still walk away with decent gains, even if you miss the exact top, which should be a win in anyone's book. Speaking of which, another indicator to keep a close eye on for timing an altcoin top is Bitcoin dominance, and you can learn more about that watching this video over here. And if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, you can do that right over here. This is Nick signing off. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.